Books have always played an important part of my life, but as a dyslexic in a time when dyslexia wasn't recognised, I found reading extremely difficult. So I tend to choose books that were easy to read.
Reading books has always been really important to me. As a kid, I was reading Roald Dahl books when my mum was feeding them to me, and everything from Roald Dahl to Goosebumps, actually. I remember doing the Choose Your Own Adventure books in Goosebumps. They were always really fun.
It's incredibly important because I think life generally is kind of argument. It comprises of argument at one level or another, and through reading and through books, you learn the process of arguing.
I therefore discovered audiobooks, and that in a way saved me. People say I'm well read, but I'm not particularly. I'm well listened. Many years ago, because of the dyslexia, I found getting a job very difficult. So in the end, I ended up being a long distance lorry driver. Now when you're on a long haul from say Nottingham to Glasgow and back, you'd be surprised at how many books you can listen to.
What books do is they start with an idea that the writer wants to kind of convince you of and prove and make you believe in. And when you read, you learn the art of being compelling in what you have to say, and then in life that helps you, and it makes sure that people don't try and take advantage of you and don't exploit you, and also that you can tell people that you love them convincingly.
One of the reasons that writing is so important to me is that it helps keep me sane. So I kind of genuinely feel that the writing has kind of saved my life, or at least made it a lot healthier and a lot happier. If I'm not writing, or if I don't have the chance to write, I start to feel a little bit depressed and a little bit low about life. Whereas actually mostly I'm kind of quite a happy, bubbly person, and that's because I get this chance to express myself. And I think it's incredibly good for mental health, reading and writing.
Books are really important, we all know that, and I think we are becoming better at reading because there's such a variety out there for people to read. And there's many ways in which you can read books, on your phone, on your tablet, or just get your book out. But it's all about education, it's all about imagination. That's what I sort of take from a book. The fact that it's not sort of spelt out in the sort of realms of screen like television and film. You have to make it, you have to imagine it yourself, and I think that's the beauty of a good book. It is for me anyway.
My favourite book is, well, amongst others, but I would like to mention To Kill a Mockingbird because that's very topical as well, because it does precisely that. It shaped me, it shaped many other people, it made us look at the world in a different way, and it broadened our horizons.
Growing up, I slowly but surely discovered Dickens, who I grew to love. And then, of course, Agatha Christie, because of my interest in crime. And more recently, it's the Sanson books, the Shardlake books, about the hunchback detective or hunchback lawyer set in the times of Henry VIII, which I've loved and read all of them.
I saw a book, Caravan to Vacarez, which was an Alistair MacLean novel. And I noticed it in my local bookshop because it had a picture on the dust jacket of the film that I'd seen on television the night before.
And I found the easiest reading the Blyton. So I became a huge reader of the Famous Five and the adventure series, the Island of Adventure, the Castle of Adventure. I found they stimulated me, interested me, and helped with dyslexia up to a point.
So when I was younger, the books that I remember the most would be Roald Dahl, in particular James and the Giant Peach. I remember having it on a cassette where you'd sort of listen to it and read it at the same time, which was really quite weird because they were sort of describing it in certain ways, and then I was looking at it from a completely different perspective, but it was my favourite book at the time.
I really like William Ivory's scripts, and they've brought a lot of attention to the city, and he's done really well, so that's fantastic. John McGregor, who's a fantastic literary author, he just writes really beautiful poetic prose.
I know with him, from reading the first few pages, whether I'm going to finish a book from, to the back cover.
But I think what I found in novels was so powerful was their ability to elicit emotion and strong feeling.
Let me give you 3 words to describe what a great book does for me. It broadens my mind and everyone else's. It helps me empathize with those I wouldn't otherwise, and it completes me as a person as it does others.
3 words that sum up reading a good book would be excitement, awe, and loss at the end because you feel like you've lost a friend.
I think a good book should stimulate, excite and educate.
There are many Nottingham writers that I enjoy reading who have just recently been introduced to, and that includes people like Paula Rosthern and John Harvey. However, my favourite remains Lord Byron, because I grew up with him and I can still recite his poems by heart that I learned in school.
My mentor is Andrew Graves, Mullet-Proof Poet, who I'm like a massive fan of. He's really into using Nottingham as an influence in his work. He's very rhythmical, he's got his own one-man show, and yeah, he's very stylish also, so I admire him in that sense too.
One of the other big influences in my life in terms of a novelist is D.H. Lawrence. But interestingly, of course, Lawrence was a playwright as well. He was a great playwright, he was a great short story writer, he was a magnificent poet. And I think that the thing that just unites all of his work is kind of emotion and passion and humour as well. And I adapted Women in Love and The Rainbow, and actually used the novella The Trespasser as a kind of as the glue that kind of went through those two novels.
My two favourite Nottingham writers are Sillitoe and Lawrence, because they were both rebels and they both wrote about what I understood and from a working class point of view.
Three favourite places in Nottingham would be, it's a city built on sandstone, lots of caves. There's one particular cave halfway up Derby Road where you walk from the Derby Road down into the park and beyond to the side of the city, and I used to do quite a bit of drinking on the other side of the city, and that was the way I used to stagger back at night, and I've got fond memories of that.
One of my favourite places in Nottingham is Bromley House Library. I only recently discovered it existed last year. It's this tiny, it's not tiny, it's tucked away in the middle of town. I never even knew it existed. I went in, and I actually went in there for an art exhibition at the time, but I was just shocked at how it's like walking into a time warp. There's all ladders going up the walls where all the bookcases are and that kind of thing. Yeah, it just smells like attic. There's this buzz of everyone just getting on, like everyone's reading different things in there, and you can just see their minds working away at it. It's great. Yeah, it's really nice to know that little places like that exist in Nottingham, and I'm hoping to even unearth some more. I've lived here my whole life, and there's still things that I'm still discovering about the city.
My favourite place of Nottingham, then and now, is Radford. I was brought up at 38 Radford Boulevard, which was the home of my grandmother. At one end of the boulevard we had the Raleigh factory with all the smell of grease, and at the other end we had the Ploughs factory with a strong smell of tobacco.
I lived away from Nottingham for quite a long time, for about a decade, and when I moved back again I was living quite close to where I'd grown up on the Broxter estate, and you know, for me, coming back to that and just seeing the way people were with each other and the way life kind of buzzed around the estate, I found that incredibly inspiring, and I found myself writing about the people that around me and the people that I grew up with, and just that kind of, I really wanted to capture almost like the voice of the estate on the page. I wanted to try and pin that down, which is really, really hard.
I love Nottingham. The three best places for me in Nottingham would be the TV Workshop, which is in the Lace Market area. It's been around for 30 years, I think, and it's where I studied for 10 years. I say studied very loosely. It's yeah, it's quite a unique place, but that's where a lot of the great actors from Nottingham went to train, really. So that would be my first. My second place would be Woollerton Park, or known as Woollerton Hall, where they filmed Batman. But for me, it's purely down to the memories that it holds. Going there as a kid, going there now. You know, I've quite a very emotional attachment to it, and I actually grew up in Woollerton, so it was on my doorstep. And the third place would be here, the Broadway, which is one of the most famous cinemas in Nottingham, and it's been massive support to me through my career. Screened a lot of my old work here, and yeah, it's a very special place.
I hope that being a city of literature will mean that there are a lot more opportunities for people like me, and for, you know, I'm part of a couple of organisations like Mouthy Poets and Left Lion, and hopefully for all the people in and around those organisations it will mean more opportunities and more events and things to go to.
As a city, we've always supported literature, we've always supported attempts to promote literacy.
I'm a supporter of UNESCO City of Literature for Nottingham, because I think that there's a really thriving literary community here, and that we want to make the most of that, and you know, hopefully bring sort of a bit of literary ambition and more reading to schools and young people here too.
And very pleased to be a UNESCO ambassador for the Nottingham City of Literature.
I hope that the honour of having the UNESCO City of Literature will encourage people to get involved. I started to write because I read Silito and I believed I was him and he was me, and there was no reason for me not to do it. And I'm hoping that the people of Nottingham and Nottinghamshire will look at this award and think to themselves, yeah, why shouldn't they get involved?
I'm a supporter of Nottingham UNESCO City of Literature.
I'm extremely proud to be a patron of the City of Literature, and I'm really, really proud. I know it deserves it very much, and everyone's worked very hard to get there.
And if I've got any advice to aspiring writers or creative people, it's just absolutely to believe that everybody's got a story to tell. That's a bit of a cliche, but of course cliches are cliches because they're true. And everybody has, and you've just got to be prepared to put yourself out there and have a go. And also not be afraid if it doesn't work out the first time, because the chances are it won't work out for the first 19, 20 times, but then it's like pulling beer through a pump, you suddenly get the good pint.
The best advice I can give to any writer is to get your story down from beginning to end. Remember, when you're writing, it's 20% inspiration, 80% perspiration, and once your story's down, you can then work on it from there, but get your story down.
So my main advice for aspiring writers, for people who want to be creative more generally, is to get out there and do it, because that's how you're going to get better and learn. And I would also say, be prepared to take some risks. Don't play it safe, because I think that really, really great creative work comes from risk taking and comes from stuff that's maybe a little bit out there. So do the work, get better at it, and take risks.